Isn't that like Dad when he was growing up? Remember how Dad was in like every sport?
Yeah, Dad was in like every sport, and yes, I agree that's what it was. It wasn't because of Dad's natural athletic ability. It was
God
because
rest his soul. He's
you had to have a certain number of kids.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just ain't typical. I'm Donna. This is Eric, and we are the Real Siblings. We are both professional realtors with Keller Williams, and I am in Tucson, Arizona. He's in San Antonio, Texas. In this podcast, we blend lifestyle with real estate. And as we do that, we work to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain, because that's our best thing, entertaining our listeners.
We think we're amusing.
We think we're hysterical, right? Well, the topics vary and our conversations go in a lot of different directions. We do work to provide our listeners with insights into the industry, which we hope would better equip you for your next real estate transaction. Today, we are going to talk about school and taxes. Both such fun subjects, right, Eric?
Right, fun subjects, but it's because it's August, and August is back to school.
That's true.
And for the last 2.5 months, we've been spoiled with traffic and driving and no school buses and a whole lot less people on the road. And that's all about to change again.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you. Our local news stations have been reporting the school districts going back to school for 2 weeks.
Oh, you mean they've already started?
Listing it in the morning news to go, oh, by the way, these are opening on these days, and then these will be starting on these days, and these will be starting on the other, because it's such a big impact.
Yeah. I think I just told you when we were talking earlier that I pay very little attention to it because I don't have any reason to, except if I'm showing homes or driving across town. And that happened yesterday. I had just done a final walkthrough, and then we were driving to the title company. And all of a sudden, your little map on your road is red and you're at a stop and you wonder why. Well, the why is because one of the top schools was, I don't know if they had started school a Thursday at noon or what they were doing, but let me tell you, traffic was slow.
My local school district starts next week.
Okay.
Starts. First day of school is Tuesday or Wednesday. Why we start in the middle of the week, I don't know. I don't get that anymore. The way we plan days in school, days off, teacher appreciation, in school, all of that stuff. But they're starting this week, which means football practices and band practices had already started. So some of that traffic has already started to build.
Okay.
Other school districts that start on the 14th or the 21st or something like that will start football practices, band practices, all that next week.
So I have to tell you, for me, I get all my news from Facebook. I was seeing a video this morning of players coming on the field getting ready for their first practice of the season. And I don't know if that was a university or I just saw some blue uniforms. But I also have been watching my friends who are taking pictures of their kids starting. So first day of school, and one of them is way over on the east side of town for a fourth grader, and then somebody else who's up here on the northwest side. And my son's last year, it makes me so sad. And I think he's in, we're going to talk, a charter school. I don't think he's in so who knows? But that's the only way I have an idea of exactly what's happening at what school. And it's getting time to start paying attention. Just
because of your people not because of your direct interest and where you're driving and what's going on.
Right. The direct interest occurs when I'm showing houses across town because it affects travel time. Yeah.
So for those of you on the YouTube and watching the video, behind Donna is old school, but not new, not the current school, not being restored as a school. It's a house.
Yeah. A friend of mine purchased it. It was the original school in town. There's some super old black and white photos of the school. And some of the people that live in town, their ancestors went there, right? You know, there's families still there. But my friend Bonnie has turned it into kind of a venue for lunches and dinners downstairs, and she's working on the upstairs to make it so that somebody could actually stay there. So.
And per our previous episodes, behind me is the elementary school that we both went to, which no longer exists because the school has since been demolished. But this was an aerial view that someone had taken for a YouTube video several years ago. Don't know who to credit for that. I just snagged a picture. I'll just be honest with you. So copyright infringements probably ensuing, and I'll just stop there. But we had talked as we prepared for this, schools, and how much school has changed as to what we remember.
Right.
And I say that from a standpoint of we grew up in an era where you either went to public school or you went to private school, which in our world meant you were going to some sort of Catholic
school.
Private school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was pretty much it. Yep. Yeah.
And now we have public schools. We have private schools. We have charter schools. We have magnet schools. We have home schools. It's so much more diverse than what we had.
Correct.
But the part that's most interesting, I guess, from my standpoint, is we have educators now in the family and people who work in the school district. And Donna?
Yeah. So I called my son Caleb. He and his wife Jessica work for a charter school in Denver. And Jessica actually works in the school as the vice principal. It's one of the language schools in Denver. And I believe there's 8 of them. Caleb is now at the headquarters. So we were talking about the difference between a charter school and a magnet school, and it's still a public school. It's still part of the Denver school system. But what he told me, Eric, was a couple things that were super interesting to me. He said that every school is given a certain amount of money for educating their students based on how many students are in school in the state of Colorado. He said he thinks it's statewide, not city oriented.
So based on enrollment, they get an allocation based on taxes that were gathered that are then dispersed from the state.
Correct. And I think he said this year $7,000 something per student. I don't know. But then the other thing that he said is, because it's a language school, I said, so do they have to test to get in? And he said, no, kindergarten and first grade, pretty much you get accepted if you apply. But by second grade, you have to test that you have the skills, because by then it's full-time in that other language. And the school he was in, there was Spanish or Mandarin. There's other schools around the city that do different languages. But by second grade, if you can't sit through a class where you learn in that language, then you're not going to likely stay at the school.
Okay. In order to be accepted, you really have to start those first couple of years to start getting introduced, or already have a background if you're going to get dropped in
you speak
second
Spanish
grade.
At home, right? You might, and everybody gets tested, even if you walk in the door and they know that you could probably speak.
And while Spanish may be more commonly spoken in Denver,
right,
Mandarin probably not.
Not so much. And then the other thing he said that was interesting, and I want everybody to know that, you know, this is a different state. I'm in Arizona, Eric's in Texas. We don't know that everything runs the same in every state or every city. The school that he's with right now, they used to get the buses that weren't being used for some of the main public schools in the city. And now they have to buy their own buses. And that's fascinating to me, because the kids really do come from all over the city. Oftentimes they have a parent that grew up in another country, or somebody that has traveled a lot, you know, something like that. And they're responsible for paying for things out of that same $7,000 per student that the other schools get, that the other schools aren't having to pay for. And you mentioned the buses where you are. So what was the situation?
Yeah. So in our area, the magnet and the charter schools are still provided busing by whatever district they're in. So there are multiple school districts.
Right.
And I think in a previous episode, we identified in Arizona, you refer to them as unified school districts. And here in Texas, they're independent school districts.
Yeah, Tucson Unified. Yeah.
And each one of those areas will pick up a different type of magnet or charter school. So there are science and technology schools. Science and technology attached to Northside. There is a medical-based magnet school.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can get the public buses to them. However, if you come from outside of the district, your parents have to get you to where the bus picks up within this school district where the magnet school exists in order to get transportation.
Yeah.
Or drive yourself if you're driving age, or your parent will take you directly to and from the school. And depending on dismissal hours, depending on when you have to start school and those, traffic is one of the biggest things that's going to be impacted as we go back to school.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas that school behind you, we walked, or there were 2 buses.
Right. And let's mention one of those 2 bus drivers.
Yeah, just passed away.
Recently passed away. And
Carolyn Cromer, and they got bus drivers to
drive buses, right?
They got bus drivers and buses, Small World USA, to come and lead the procession down to the cemetery, which was so sweet.
Yeah. I'm laughing, but the tears are coming up.
I know, right? Wow. So not only did everybody ride one of those 2 buses, you had to have permission if a town kid went home with a country kid. And if you recall, my youngest son got in trouble for mooning somebody off the roof of the house because the bus driver coming by saw him doing that. Pretty sure that doesn't happen in a city, right? And Caleb,
wait, that was at the Main Street house, not the.
That was at the Main Street house, and I think he was home for lunch. Yeah, he'll be thrilled that I told that to the world.
Okay, now wait a second. This would be the same youngest child who now works for a school district, correct?
Correct.
That is full circle.
Yes, exactly, and probably he wouldn't think anything of it if somebody was mooning somebody.
If somebody did it nowadays, it's like, have a sense of humor.
Yeah. But as we talk about this, and you and I started this with what percentage of our property taxes and things from a real estate perspective go towards schools. Part of the reason that the school behind you no longer exists, and 2 or 3 others in Fremont, is because there are smaller families. The schools didn't make sense to financially update and undo that furnace room that we all used to go down and hang out.
The boiler room that Bob Hetrick.
And so smaller numbers, the classes had gotten quite small there. And so the county, the school district, everybody has to make a decision about where the dollars are spent, sadly.
Well, your comment about Caleb saying that they have to buy their own buses now. They're part of the school district, yet not.
Correct. In a different way. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That is very, very peculiar. It's like, that's, you either are or you aren't.
Yep. Well, and Eric, we're not talking to anybody in New York City or anything like that, but think about the city kids in big cities that get on city buses and go, whether that's here in the States or whether that's in Europe or whatever. It's just normal to take the public transportation. I don't know that anybody in Tucson takes public transportation.
Very, very few. Our public transportation in San Antonio is subsidized. It can't support itself.
Yeah.
It's a necessity.
Right.
But it also can't support itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, no matter how much we keep investing into glorified, more extravagant, super connection hubs.
Wow, that was a sentence. So you and I
glorified super connection hubs.
Super connection. Is that like
that's not a thing?
It feels like a round.
It's not a thing.
It feels like a roundabout.
So you did. So we're talking taxes, and of course, we also mentioned that this is a big part of what you pay for property taxes. It's the single biggest portion.
Right.
And you said you did the math on your side, and it's what?
Yes. So I ran the numbers for it. I live in Pima County, and that of a $1.4 billion budget or something, 904, almost 905 million go towards a variety of projects, including the schools. And of that 905, 63% of it goes towards the schools, the Pima Community College, which has 5 or 6 campuses, and a couple of other things. So I didn't get a breakdown specifically for public schools or per student, but it was just under 574 million of the 900.
And that also, you said that supports the community college. So there is, within San Antonio, there is the Alamo City College District.
Okay.
And it's a variety of campuses all over town.
Yeah.
But they are not supported through those. They come from a different fund from the state. So it's a public institution. Public institutions get a certain amount of money from the state, but it is not allocated like where my property tax statement says, Bandera Independent School District. That's it. Boom. This is how much is going to the school district. And for me, on an individual basis, I didn't look at it globally.
Right.
How does that impact me, who doesn't have and has never had any students in the Bandera School District?
Right. Right.
Because that's the next part we go to.
Yeah.
But for me, just doing the math quick, when you said, hey, we're going to start this, 56% of my total tax bill goes to just my public school district.
Did you pull out your taxes and look at it to see that number?
Yes, I went to the appraisal district and looked at the numbers.
I don't know the answer to that. I clearly could, I could clearly look it up. It would be interesting to know what percentage. And Eric, let me ask you, so if I have 2 or 3 friends, Kayla, that work for the public schools, or their children work for the public schools, and imagine a lot of them are in the arts, one's in music, one's in theater, things like that are often considered extra, right?
Yes.
Unless you go to the school for the arts, the magnet school for the arts, in which case that's
there's an expectation there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But what I wonder is how, for us and for how many around me just still go to the local school. Like the one so Marana, which is as you're going north up to Phoenix from us, you've driven up to your daughter's up there. As you get north, and we're expanding that direction into what used to be cotton fields, and it's growing and the infrastructure is coming in. That is a huge mix now. It's a huge mix of the kids that are way still out on the ranches, the people that are down the backside of the mountains by old Tucson. So they could be kids from the reservation. And then also now this community that's growing, that's suburb.
More affluent or upscale, would you?
Yeah. Not crazy, but yes, suburban. And so you get into that school, which is a public school. And if you choose to go there, it's a huge mix of people, which I, as a person who likes diversity, I find that really cool. We were the small town kids. We were the country kids when we went into Fremont, right?
We absolutely were. Absolutely were.
Yeah.
So we have talked about our father in the past being a bit on the frugal side of things.
F word in my book. Frugal.
It's an F word in your book?
It is. And it's a picture of bad stuff.
With that in mind, had we been Catholic, do you think Dad would have chosen to pay tuition to send us into Fremont at a young age, or take advantage of the public school for which his taxes were going to, which sits behind us?
We would have gone to public school. He would have said we can pray at home. That's all. I can't even fathom that he would have paid for school.
Right? Doesn't even cross our mind. It's like, why would you pay tuition when
our taxes are paid?
Our taxes are paying for the school building behind.
And I used to think about that with the kids that did go in. Becky Randolph, right? That group, some of the Randolphs went into St. Joe and St. Anne's. So a couple of the Catholic elementary that fed into the high school, right? And I don't know, if buses came, we'll have to ask a couple of them, whether buses came or whether mom and dad drove them. I don't know.
See, there's more of that we can't even misremember because it wasn't part of our lives.
Right. So we can just make up whatever we want.
They hitched a ride. They threw out a thumb
Our truth. Oh, there
on 590 into Route 20, down, dumped off somewhere on State Street, and walked over to St. Joe.
There we go. Well, they're going to love hearing this story. We might need to interview them next year if we get back there to do these interviews. Oh my
goodness. Okay, so you brought up the fact that, or we've now mentioned public schools and private schools. And we talked about those other schools and the diversity in campuses and I'll say education options. Yet it's still, from my standpoint, a big topic of discussion that comes up: election cycles and parent choice. And I don't know whether Arizona is a state where they're talking about vouchers or not vouchers. I have a current listing. Let's put this into practical terms.
Okay.
Because there's boundaries that are drawn geographically, which end up making no sense. And I have a rural farm listing right now that the only way to get to this house, which sits in Kerr County, which is adjacent to Bandera County, is to leave out of Bandera County and drive up to Kerr County.
Okay.
It is a dead-end street that's almost 6.5 miles long. The house sits at 5.5 miles. The school district that this is part of is called Comfort Independent School District. Comfort is a town. In order to get to Comfort schools, you would either need to drive back down
to Bandera
into Bandera County on Bandera Highway, drive past the Bandera Independent School District to get to Comfort, or you go the opposite direction, go through the Bernie Independent School District in order to get to the school. That means you have passed up two public institutions which are easier to get to and closer. And if for some reason you actually have to get there, there is no bus that's going to run there. There's just not.
Yeah.
I called and I asked the district. You would have to drive your child to the closest spot where a bus is picking somebody up, which is probably close to 20 plus miles. And you've already passed both of those school districts in order to get to someplace. If you actually drove to the school, 41 to 42 miles one way, an 84-mile round trip.
So are those kids allowed to go to Bandera or Bernie?
They are. So I had to make those calls. I wanted to be informed on this. So I made
this is your listing that we've talked about. Right?
And this is my listing. Yeah. And they could get into Bandera, which would be the closest. However, there has to be room in an individual class based on in-school district enrollment. So you may be able to get in the 10th grade, but by the 11th grade, because things have changed, you may not be able to continue to attend the high school because the class size has changed.
Really?
Outside of your control. So it has to be on a per basis exception. And so now you're going, here I am in this predicament with a house where the largest portion of my property taxes are going to a school district that I can't get to and can't support me.
Wow. Has that come up yet in your showings and stuff like that? Or
no, it has not, but it's certainly something that I was researching prior to putting the listing on. So I had some idea what was going on and what the answers were.
Wow.
And then of course it's like, well, this is an area that probably isn't going to have a family, but it's large acreage. It's a family farm. It's got multiple bedrooms.
Wow.
Doesn't mean that those bedrooms are going to be filled with adults or near adults.
You know, I have to tell you, whenever I drive, if I do the diagonal thing going up to like Dan and Eleanor's in Kansas, and so I go up to Albuquerque or something, and then across the Oklahoma Panhandle and up that way. And even in northern New Mexico, and you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's ranches, and you're wondering, are they homeschooled? Do they go to a school? Do they do internet school? Like I always wonder, because there's thousands of acres with a house or two, right?
Right.
And clearly they're being educated somewhere, right? I mean,
they are, and that's why in West Texas, where you get more remote, they have these 6-man football teams. In order to field a team, you play 6-man football, and almost everybody plays the entire game.
Isn't that like Dad when he was growing up? Remember how Dad was in like every sport?
Yeah, Dad was in like every sport, and yes, I agree that's what it was. It wasn't because of Dad's natural athletic ability. It was because...
God rest his soul.
You had to have a certain number of kids. Well, and that's why our great nephew
Yep.
was playing.
Yeah, that's true.
Why did Gabe start playing? Because they needed him to field a team.
That's true.
In the Lynn school
What
district.
was it, like
so there
7 or 8 kids that graduated or something? I just graduated.
Areas that are that remote. Yeah, graduation ceremonies, they all fit in a single line of chairs on the stage.
Wow. And we thought we were from a small town, right?
And we thought we were from a small town.
Wow.
We sure did. Okay, so the other part of this that near and dear to me is the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had explained to you, there's lots and lots of, in a growing city,
Mm-hmm.
cities are constantly under construction.
Yeah.
Either building buildings or improving roads and making changes to roads. And the closest high school to me headed into San Antonio, part of the North Side Independent School District.
Okay.
And they have decided that the best thing to do to improve traffic flow is to create what's called a super street. And a super street now means you cannot make a left turn. Everybody has to make a right turn from any kind of entering road, go down someplace on the road to a traffic light, and go through an authorized U-turn lane.
Right.
And head the other direction. That means the main access for buses to this high school are now cut off. You can't cross the intersection to get to the high school. You cannot cross that intersection to get your kids to the elementary school. Parents are going to have to drive or school buses to this intersection, make a right-hand turn, get into the turnaround lane. Yeah. School buses, based on how the lights are timed, are probably going to be able to get 2 school buses through any given light change and get these kids to school, or parents to get to school. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I don't know about you, but if you're within 2 miles of the school, buses are not picking you up. It is the expectation that parents are getting you to and from the school. So part of the traffic build is all of these parents who are on the road taking their kids to school to drop them off, and then at 3:00 in the afternoon, showing back up to enter a line to pick their children up.
Yeah.
To take them home, because kids aren't going to walk 2 miles.
Yeah.
Right.
Same here. I mean, it's close. Remember Caleb, when we moved here, he rollerbladed to school, and we had maybe 3/4 of a mile from where we lived.
Right. And I mean, we had to walk all the way across the railroad tracks in Lindsey.
So far.
We didn't live close like those Haas kids.
So far. Oh my gosh, that's fun.
And so what does that mean? I had to look up the numbers.
Okay.
Right. So on average, Texas Department of Public Safety and Licensing says that there are about 5,000 newly issued high school driver's license statewide.
Statewide.
Every single month.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So during the course of the summer, some 15,000 people
got their license.
Brand new driver's licenses.
Yeah.
And while there's been some driving, rush hour traffic at school is very, very different than what we've experienced for the last 2.5 months. So add in the construction, add in all these new drivers, add in, heck, I don't know about you, but every school district sign that I drive by said we're hiring bus drivers.
Wow.
So you got newly licensed bus drivers out there too that have only ever driven a bus with no kids on it. And we all know we were so well behaved on the buses, right, sis?
I was. You were the one, Eric.
I was the one. Dan was a good kid.
4th child, you got away with murder.
Says the only girl in the family who could do whatever she wanted. Wah, wah, wah.
Numbers are just different, Eric.
So what's going on in your part of the world for our listeners? School districts back in?
Yeah,
they're back in. Some of school districts still starting in September. Yeah. Does that even happen anymore?
No, everybody here will be in August. The university is, coming in. People came in from other places a week or two ago, moved their kids for college if they already had rental, but they were going to new places because everybody's starting new leases and things like that. And one day I will take a route where I know there's a school and I will have forgotten it. And then I'll probably be swearing in the car because.
And you'll pull your hair out.
Like yours. I'll be like, no. Yeah. And the turn lanes, the drop off, all that we just never dealt with. And I don't know, at Ross in Fremont, I would think we could, predominantly, they either drive themselves there and park, or they ride. At that point, especially for the high school, there's no drop off.
Well, and it was small enough that if you didn't drive, your parents didn't drive, you got to ride with somebody else. I mean, I rode with Mary Smith.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And Dan and I rode together for a bit, and then now and then with Karen Rogers, trying to think who else, but interesting. Yeah. So yeah, they're getting back, and somebody said, well, shouldn't they wait till it cools down? And I'm like, then it's like November. Like, there's no use waiting. Everybody has air conditioning, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be hot. And those kids start their sports. Like you said, they're out.
Hot, humid, dehydrated, heat injuries. Yeah. Watch this, watch that. We're getting all of these, hey, extreme heat announcements, but football practice is going to be taking place.
Yep.
But that honestly is part of the reason I got to bet more of your affluent high schools have got indoor practice facilities.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I've thought that all along. Every kid that plays soccer here and stuff, they're playing, either first thing in the morning at the crack of dawn, they're going to swim before, or they're playing at 6 or 7 at night. And it can still be 100, 105, sometimes in the dark in the middle of the summer, which then it's cooled to a pleasant 90, which, by the way, I love where I live for about 8 months.
Which is why you have those migratory.
Yes. Yeah. That's why.
Four-legged birds.
That's right. That's why.
Or two-legged birds. What did you say?
That's why I said four-legged in that one thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, brother, why don't you wrap us up?
All right. We want to thank everybody listening, joining us. We do not take it lightly that you take time out of your day to spend some time with us. We appreciate that you are committing that time and listening to our podcast. As we call it a day, hopeful that our insights, discussion about schools have made you maybe think, be on the lookout, pay attention to what's going on and the changes in the traffic patterns. Love to know what you think from a taxes, traffic, whatever. Our goal is to edutain you and give you some practical insights into our industry. As a final reminder, we're both realtors. We both work for Keller Williams. Donna is in Tucson. I'm in San Antonio. We are here to assist you, and we can connect you with real estate agents around the country and around the globe should you need assistance. Remember, maybe simple, ain't always easy. And I'm Eric.
And I'm Donna.
And we are Real Siblings.
Thanks all.
See ya.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Sibling. It Ain't Easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.